Good morning. This is Eric Martel with Break Away from the Rat Race. And today I have the honor of speaking with Michael Zuber, author of One Rental at a Time, a very popular book. And Michael explains a lot about his, in this book, about his journey from full-time employment, 9 to 5 kind of job into financial freedom. So welcome, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Eric. Thank you very much. I got to tell you, I love being on channels that talk about the rat race.
Yeah.
It's actually something I didn't even know existed until I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which was the first book that kind of introduced that concept to me. And the sad fact is, I was 30 years old when I read the book, so I'd already been in the rat race and didn't even know it.
Yeah. So that's and when I chose that the title for that channel, I didn't know if people would really connect to that with the rat race and stuff like that. But it seems to connect a little bit to some people. And then when I explain what that is, then they say, "Oh yeah, my God, I am on the hamster on the wheel or the."
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. So, tell me a little bit. So, Michael, tell me a little bit more about kind of your journey and kind of like your first, kind of like where you come from, like your background and all of that, and then kind of what made you come to real estate and who you are today.
Absolutely. So I think break away from the rat race is a great title for kind of my story and journey. And really, it begins. I was raised by a loving family. Didn't have means. I mean, there were many times. My parents are high school graduates, both served in the military, but we didn't have money. Right? Money. Yeah. When you asked me about money, it was a source of stress because life was good when we had it, but we didn't have it a lot. So life was pretty stressful. And my lessons learned from early in life was. Go sell as many hours as you can, because I've had 2 or 3 jobs for most of my life.
Yeah.
And that's just how I was raised. But then once you get the money, what do? Well, you spend it. So that's what I did. Right?
There was not much to save anyway, right? I mean, you had a little bit to save, but then any little emergency would drain you.
Yeah, again, as a kid, again, my story is pretty weird, right? So I had a job since I was 12. I got a job under the table because in California at the time, you couldn't get a job until you were 13, even with your parents' permission. So what did I do? I got a job, a cash job under the table in a dry cleaner, just doing nasty work, and the fumes and stuff, I'm sure didn't do well for me. But again, I needed money because money equaled, a better life. And then I didn't save it. I just spent it. As soon as it came in, it went. And why did I do that? Because that's how I was raised, right? You earn money, you spend money. Never talked about saving, never talked about investing, never talked about an emergency fund. Again, money was a stressor. So what did I learn? Well, I'm going to go bust my ass because my parents work hours and get money.
Yeah.
I didn't have any inclination of, well, make your money work for you. I mean, we didn't talk about that. We either were shopping or yelling at each other because we didn't have any money. I mean, that was kind of my youth.
Yeah.
Then I go off to school, right? I'm the first one in my family to get a undergrad and graduate degree, both sides. Because why? Because I equated advanced degree with money. I mean, that's the only reason I did it. And then I go on to, I start making 6 figures in my mid-20s, which, oh, by the way, is more than my parents combined at that point. Wow. And I was, quote unquote, the successful one.
Yeah.
Why? Well, because I paid a lot in taxes. That's why I was the successful one. I didn't have anything to show for it. Then I start day trading stocks, with the .com era and all of that. And quite well, do really well. Don't know what the hell I'm doing, but the market goes up and I don't realize it. And I win and have the tax return to prove it. And then all of a sudden the market turns pretty much like it did in the last couple of weeks. Kind of
everybody felt before the .com crash, everybody felt like they were a stock genius. They knew how to pick stock and all of that. And everybody, the receptionist and the secretary, everybody was watching CNBC and then just,
CNBC.
And then trading and doing IPOs and all of that. Everybody.
Yeah, people were quitting their jobs to day trade. I mean, I was a manager at the time, and people were quitting to be day traders. Pretty much just like it is 20 years later today in 2020, right? People are David Portnoy and Robinhood accounts. It's all the same stuff, just different technology. But I lose it all. And then I remember walking into a bookstore, or today would be Amazon, but I walked into a physical bookstore with the tail between my legs, totally depressed, beaten, lost 6 figures, right? Which again was an unimaginable amount of money from where I came from, right? Just total loser. And I find this purple book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I go on to read it 10 or 11 times in a row, just like cover to cover.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, these are like revolutionary thoughts. Nobody's I mean, and I have an MBA. I have a master's in business administration, and nobody has ever talked to me about these things.
Isn't that amazing?
Shit,
Yeah.
I'm doing it all wrong.
Yeah.
And that's where I get the inclination for a house. But again, if you've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it doesn't tell you how.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It changes your mindset. It probably motivates you. It questions your upbringing. But I didn't know what to do next. So I go on reading every book I can. And ultimately, we start buying rental properties, which is our story, one rental at a time. We go from a single house that 15 years later is a portfolio of hundreds of units, and we retire financially free at 45. So our story starts at 30 and ends 15 years later.
Wow. Great story. And so when you look at the, so how did you get started? How did you find out like which house to buy, where to go? I think you went to you were looking at Fresno, and so how did you pick Fresno, and how did you figure all that out? Because it's new to you, right? Even though you have the MBA, they don't teach you how to invest. They basically make you into a manager to work for somebody else. And,
exactly.
So even
they give you a decent network.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, you do that for the networking. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, again, right, it starts with that book that changed my life, and then I go on a reading binge. So for me, every book I read after that said invest 30 minutes from home. Yeah. Right. That was the answer. Right. If you net it out. Unfortunately, I happen to live in the Silicon Valley, which today is ridiculously expensive. And oh, by the way, 20 years ago, it was just as ridiculous. But every book said invest 30 minutes from home. So what did I do? My wife and I went on a 52-week journey to find the magic street, the magic house in the Bay Area that worked. Yeah. And after 52 weeks of wasted time, my wife says, that's enough. We're not doing this anymore. Yeah. We're either done or we're going somewhere else. So Olivia gets a lot of credit, which I give her in the book multiple times. She pulls out a California map on our kitchen table and goes, where are we going to go? Because for me, the answer was, we can't invest here. So what do we do? Do we get on a plane or do we drive? Yeah. I happen to have a career that already took me on a plane 100 nights a year. And I'm like, no more planes. So my answer was car. So we started drawing circles around where we live. And the first market of size, which meant a population of over 500,000, was Fresno. That made sense. Yeah. And we were in Fresno 2, maybe 3 weeks later. We found that house on Norris Drive that we talk about in the book, and we bought it. We were at the point where we were exhausted. Yeah. It was $107,000. We were told it rent for $1,100, and we just dove in. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We put 20% down. Why? Because that's what the bank said to do. I wish I could tell you our thought process was deeper on that first house. It wasn't. We were just exhausted after wasting a year. Yeah. And we felt like we had to do something.
Well, this is good because I think so many people are just going to say they're still not going to take action. They just do, and they spend a lot of time. They find the right house, the right properties, the number makes sense, and then they still hesitate, and then they don't take action. So I think this is where the turning point is, that you take action and you actually make the transaction.
Yeah, it was a positive cash flow house. Back in the day, it met the 1% rule. I don't believe in it now, but that was, again, right? That was another thing that was talked about. Yeah. And again, I remember driving home because for us, Fresno was 2.5 hours away one way. So I remember my wife in the car on the way back, and she goes, so what'd you think? I'm like, oh, I wish we would have saw more. I wish it had done that. She says, pull over. I'm like, what do you mean pull over? She goes, pull over. And she she goes on to very nicely say, if you don't write an offer on that house, I'm never coming back. Because remember, she just spent 52 or 54
Yeah.
weeks or whatever it was wasting her Sundays, which,
Yeah.
rightly so. Because she had a job too. It's not like
Yeah,
she was
because
staying home
you
or
were
anything.
both working, right? Yeah.
Yeah, she worked her ass off as well. So
Yeah.
she's like, and so of course I go, yes, dear. Called up the real. I'll offer full price. Why? Because I don't know. Everybody offers full price. I don't know what. I mean, I can offer less. I didn't know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
So she
good.
gets
That
tons of credit.
at least you were in alignment. You both wanted
Oh,
to buy
without a
the
doubt.
property, right? Because otherwise,
Without a
sometimes
doubt.
people are not. If they have a partner, a significant other, it's you have to convince your partner that say, okay, well, I want to go in on this, and this is important, and and you have to convince them, and so you were both in it together. So that was really
Yeah.
this is a great
Yeah,
thing.
I'm very lucky. I've talked to lots of people that one way or the other, it's not in sync. The beauty of doing this, because again, if you're going to be a buy and hold investor and really look to get out of the rat race, it's going to take time.
Yeah.
And the length of the race or the length of time to get out is based on how much money you need, right? We live in the Silicon Valley, which is expensive. So our road was long.
Yeah.
And for us, it was 15 years. Many people can do it in less than 10 if you keep your monthly expenses low. What that means is we had our ups and downs personally, right? There were sometimes I was frustrated. Sometimes she was frustrated. We were very lucky that whenever I was up or whenever I was down, she was up, or she was down, I was up. So we pulled each other forward. We divided activity so we weren't stepping on each other's toes. We obviously trusted each other. Constant communication. But yeah, I'm truly lucky.
Oh, this is good. So we had very similar inflection point, I think, for that at the dot-com crash, because at that point, that's when I was looking for passive income, and then I was looking for rental properties as well. And actually, before the dot-com crash, I wanted to diversify. I had like tons of stock options, and I wanted to diversify just because. And then.
It's a good thing to do. It's what everybody says. Diversify.
Exactly, right. And then I talked to my Merrill Lynch. I go to Merrill Lynch, and then I say, and the guy looks at my thing, said, "That's it. You've made it. You've made it. You can just okay. I've made it."
Yay! What does that
mean? So I
mean?
started to diversify. Dot-com crash happened. Oh no, I didn't make it anymore. Now I have to work. I have to continue working.
Sorry, the finish line moved.
In what exactly, right? 1 year, the whole thing shifted, and then so that's when I decided I wanted to be in control of my investment, not relying on the stock option and people doing like crazy stuff that I'm not aware of. And I did look at the Bay Area, which is where I lived, and it didn't make any sense to rent. If you wanted something to cash flow, you had to put too much money in.
Yeah.
And the return was 1% and 2%. Then so well, I might as well buy bonds.
Yep.
And then at that time, I don't like driving, so I was also on the plane. I was an independent consultant, and I would go and fly everywhere. So I didn't want to fly. And I didn't like driving. I had no appetite to go 3 hours out to Fresno and then having to come back. And just like, so I was out.
Yeah.
So at that point, we did all kinds of other stuff. We did like a gourmet sauce company and all of that. But so that's just very interesting. And something that some people may not know, now there's more and more out of state investing, which is what we're doing now.
Sure.
And people think like the iPhone and all of that that's been around forever. But in 2001, 2002, I mean, the iPhone wasn't there.
No.
The DocuSign wasn't there. Electronic signature wasn't there.
Nope.
The Zillow wasn't there. So all these things was you couldn't do what we're doing today.
Absolutely.
In 2001. So Fresno was the market that you chose basically because of proximity, and
it was driving was our answer, and it was for me it was important of size, because sometimes I get asked, well, why Fresno? The answer was it had a lot of people and it was a diversified economy. Back then you could live in Fresno on $50K a year. Even today in 2020, you can live in Fresno, a family of 4, on $60,000. That's impossible for people to believe when you're in LA or San Francisco. Or
exactly.
Area, right? Oh my God, you don't need $200,000. No, you can buy a home in Fresno for $200,000. Which, you could qualify. A lot of you can qualify with minimum wage.
Right? That's pretty interesting. I mean, so some of the houses that we sell with our turnkey business, they're like let's say 90 or
Mm-hmm.
$100,000,
Mm-hmm.
and people are shocked. It's like, I buy the whole house for
Yeah,
that, or is it
that's
the
not the
down?
down payment. It's pretty funny.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, it is possible. There's a lot of yeah, we kind of live in a bubble, and then it's just
Yeah.
I mean, we do live in a bubble,
Yep.
but yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how that evolved. So this is so what was the next step after that? So you bought the Fresno, so that
Yeah.
was
Yeah. So our journey starts the first purchase late 2002, I believe. So for us, and again, if you've been doing this a long time, you know what's coming, right? There's a huge crash. So let's just call it 2008,
yeah,
um, which was huge. But let's talk about what happened before that. So
yeah,
at the time, we didn't have a goal. We were always just about the next house,
yeah,
right? We weren't thinking financial freedom. We weren't thinking financial independence. We weren't thinking rat race. We were
yeah,
like, no, we're going to have a better financial future. So
yeah.
we go from like year 1 to like year 5. We end up with eight doors, 7 properties, right? One of them was 2 houses on 1 lot, right?
Yeah.
But
So
still,
that
for us,
was
it's
just,
houses.
yeah. So eight doors just before 2000, the crash of 2008.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then where we're at is we're trying to get the 9th one. This is
Yeah.
if you read our book, this is an inflection point in our business. So we're trying to buy the 9th house. And just for comparison's sake, we'll compare it to the first house. The house on Norris Drive, which I talk about in the book, we bought for 107, rented 1100. Norris Drive, not 4 years later, was selling for 264.
Wow.
Rent was still 1100. That's how crazy lending got and how much froth was in the market. So we're
Wow.
trying to buy a 9th house in that market.
Yeah.
And we don't know what to do because I have an advanced degree. My wife has an advanced degree. We're doing the spreadsheets and we're like, we can't get anything but a negative number, right? It's all negative cash flow.
Yeah.
And we don't bet on appreciation. We never have, we never will.
Yeah.
We're like, honey, I don't know what to do. I mean, I don't know, right? So we go to a real estate meetup, and this real estate meetup changed our lives. We hear the guy speak, and I remember talking to him afterwards, and he put his arm around me, and he goes, "Oh, it'll be okay." And he basically says this magic words: "Have you ever looked at small multifamilies, and specifically commercial?" And I'm like, I'm not a millionaire or a billionaire. I can't afford that, right? Nobody in my family ever had anything, right? So I only think you can buy houses.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Oh, you should go look at 5 to 10 unit buildings." I'm like, 5 to 10 unit buildings? Where would I go look for that? I mean, I don't know anything. I'm a total idiot, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And lo and behold, he gives me some tips, and I go and look for him. And sure enough, we find a 5 unit building, 5 1 bedroom, 1 bath, big row, 1 story, renting for $600 each for $3,000, right? Total.
Yeah.
And it cost me $223.
Oh wow. Compared to the
Yeah,
260 for
$264,
$1,100.
$1,100. So we go on a 1031 exchange binge.
Okay.
For 9 months or 12 months, we exchange every house. We get out of the houses and we go into apartments. So right before the peak, we complete our last transaction, and we go from 8 doors to 80. 5,
Whoa.
13, 10, 18, 18. You know, we just ladder up. Cash flow explodes, as you would expect.
Yeah.
But again, the other thing you got to realize is managing apartments is very different than houses, right? You got more people and closer spaces. So our expenses were off, right? We didn't budget enough expenses. And then the crash happens. Oh, that first house on Norris Drive goes all the way from 264 to 75 grand. And still rents for 1,100. It's pretty funny. But yeah, our apartments go down, but rents go up. And we're doing fine. Our net worth probably takes a hit, but as I tell people, you don't spend net worth. You don't get out of the rat race on net worth, as you learned with stock options, right? It could change.
Exactly.
Right. But our cash flow went up.
And the interesting thing too is that it didn't matter what the price of the property was. You know, when you bought it at 100, the rent was 1,100. Then the value increased to 264.
1,100.
Then it's still 1,100.
Yep.
Then it goes all the way down to 70. It's still
1,100. That's right.
Right. So that's what the rent. I mean, it's if you focus on cash flow. I mean, all these ups and downs. I mean, you can go and take some money out when the value is up, but you know, if you're thinking long term and then
Mhm.
you focus on cash flow, then you're going to be fine. You're going to be able to weather. But maybe I'm jumping ahead here
No, no.
because you obviously weathered
Yeah, we weathered it just
storm.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
again, you know, the crash happens, and you know, we start seeing prices come down, right? Again, just using Norris Drive because we talked about it, it's 264, and then it's 220, and it's, you know, blah blah blah, all down. So somewhere along the journey on the way down, we start trying to buy again,
mhm.
right? Because houses are cheap.
Yeah.
And this is now another wake up call. We go into a bank that has most of our money, and we ask for
Yeah.
a loan
Uh-huh.
and to buy another one, right? 20% down, 800 credit score, 7-figure net worth, 6-figure income. Bank tells us no. I'm like, huh? What do
Mhm.
you mean? I didn't even know no was an answer. I mean, you mean a bank can tell me no? I mean, what's up with that? And then we go to another bank, and they don't only tell us no, they tell us no with curse words like no, F no. You're the enemy. You're evil, right? Real estate
Oh,
investors got a bad rap.
uh,
2009, 2010.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like we were the cause of this horrible financial crisis when in reality it was freaking Wall Street and the banks doing bad
And the
loans. It wasn't
banks,
me.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Why are you pointing at me? But yeah,
Yeah.
they told us no. And that is one of the reasons why prices got so low.
Yeah.
So we had to find another way. So we get aggressive. We use hard money to start with because it's the only thing we knew
Yeah.
of. And then we start raising private money. We
Yeah.
start buying stuff for 40 grand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Wow.
rough, but it's 40 grand and the houses rent for 11, 12, 1300.
Yeah.
And we buy everything we can. 2010, we buy every house we can. And then some. We buy apartments when the banks go, hey, you got
Hmm.
this one. Can you take that one? We bought an 18-unit building, nothing down because the bank wanted it gone. We ended up, you know, we're coming out of the trough. We're now from 80 to like 150. We continue buying, and ultimately, my wife exits like 6 years ago. I exit 2.5, 3 years ago,
Hmm.
with the portfolio knocking on, you know, almost 200 doors. Um, so yeah, it's possible, right? It all
Yeah.
began
Yeah.
with that one house.
Yeah. So the and so all these houses, all these units, are they all in the Fresno area, or did
Fresno
you look at other
County.
market?
No,
Okay.
Fresno County. We have occasionally played with the idea of going anywhere. We did a lot. Remember in '08 when I talked about going from houses to multifamily? The first thing we
Hmm.
did is we go, damn, California's too expensive. Let's
Yeah.
go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So for like 3 months, we traveled, you know, we'd go to Texas and San Antonio and Dallas and Austin and,
Yeah.
you know, Reno and Denver and Salt Lake and Boise. And we went all over. But
Yeah.
for me, it was so hard to build a team because we fired the
Yeah.
first 5 people and
Yeah.
I had so little time, right? I was very often in 3 countries a week, right? I
Oh
could be in
wow.
Japan, Australia, and Brazil in the same week,
Wow. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So I had
Hmm.
no interest in doing that again. So we toyed with it, but we never left, and
Hmm.
I'll never leave at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have a good critical mass
Yep.
in one market. So this is good. And I agree. I mean, it is for us, we invest out of state, and it was very difficult to build a team out there. I mean, we've been
Hmm.
successful building the team, but it was a lot of effort, a lot of and before we put any other people's money into our
Hmm.
projects or sell, we wanted to make sure that it worked for us. So we always invested our money first, make sure that
Smart.
all the kinks were out, and
Hmm.
then we kind of expanded to other investors.
Smart.
So that's an incredible journey, obviously. And so what do you think the other people, like the people that have not invested yet, they're working 9 to 5.
Mm.
So why do you think, or what is the why do you think these individuals are not what are
I
the barriers basically
believe,
to achieving financial freedom for them?
yeah, I believe there's 2 things, because it's a sexy story, right? But
Hmm.
most people think it's fiction.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the problem. So I believe most people, if clearly not all, but again, most people lack 2 things. First is belief, and
Hmm.
the second is confidence.
Yeah.
So belief, that's why was I wanted to document the honest to goodness, bad and the good, the ugly and the great story of one rental at a time.
Yeah.
So again, I can only tell our story. Our story is our story, but we wrote it in a way that people can get belief.
Hmm.
Now, I am not promising financial freedom to anyone, but I do say if you follow the principles in the book, you can have a better financial future. And that's good enough for folks.
Yeah.
And then confidence is the other one,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you believe in yourself, sometimes it's confidence, right? We've all suffered, right, in this world
Yeah.
financially at different points.
Mm-hmm.
I came to real estate investing off a catastrophic six-figure loss in the stock market when my family in my youth, we never had $10,000, let alone $100,000 to lose, right? So
Yeah.
catastrophic.
Yeah.
And you have to rebuild confidence in yourself. So I believe with focus, consistent effort, and time, you can do it. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's lack of belief, because I think most people think financial freedom, financial independence, retire early is fiction. And I'm spending my waking years telling you it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Time, work, effort, you can get there.
Yeah. And I think what I like about your book too is about kind of like it's like one rental at a time. Don't get ahead of yourself and think,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna have to figure out how to manage a portfolio of 200 properties in order to do that. No, you don't need to do that. And
Yeah.
you really, I mean, you're gonna see some changes with your first rental. You know,
Absolutely.
just in your taxes,
Yeah.
in
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, all these things. I mean, it's a shift. It's a mind shift that
Yeah.
is critical.
Nothing concerns me more when I take a phone call from somebody who has zero,
Yeah,
and the first word they tell me is I need 100, or God forbid 1,000 units.
yeah,
I'm like, no, you don't.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
No, if you come to me and you talk, I spend a lot of my time talking about four. I believe if most people can just get 4 rental properties,
yeah.
they will have a better financial future.
Hmm.
Um, financial independence, the time, the sacrifice, the life events you must work through to get there.
Yeah,
It's not for everyone. But if
yeah,
we can get you to 4, one a year for 4 years, man, life gets good.
yeah, yeah,
That's what we should do.
yeah, yeah. And I think there's also the 0 to 1. I think that's the jump here. And I agree with
Yes.
you. I think some of it is the beliefs. To me, like in my book, I talk about limiting beliefs and
Mm-hmm.
belief system and stuff like that, and then kind of like getting that out of the way. But then after that is really about focusing on the right strategy and all of that. And the 0 to 1 this is where the mind shift happened. And then if you can do that, take action
Mm-hmm.
and pull the trigger on at least one transaction,
Yeah.
you're gonna see a change. You should
Yeah. And
feel
what
a
I tell
change.
people to do, back to the confidence, you need to build confidence in yourself. And
Yeah, yeah,
what I tell people, the only thing you have to do, because again, my job was to secure capital and find deals. That's all I did. I
yeah,
removed all the other nonsense, never painted, never did roofing, never did plumbing, just outsource it all. Because I
yeah,
was freaking out of the country, right? Didn't have a choice.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I tell them, spend time researching your market. Go learn
yeah,
what an average deal is.
yeah.
If you know what average is in any market,
Hmm.
you only have to say yes to good or great deals.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
depending on the market, 1 or 2% are good or great. Just say yes to good or great deals.
Hmm.
And until you have the confidence to declare that's a good deal, don't do the deal.
Yeah.
I see too many people get excited. They get energy. They look at 3 things and they go, I'm going to buy the purple one. Why the hell are
Hmm.
you going to buy the purple one? Well, because it's purple, or it's the same address of the
Yeah.
house I grew up in. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is that about? And what are these?
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
I have to fall in love with my investment and stuff like
yeah,
that.
no,
It's just
what?
no.
I mean, it's just, yeah, do the work,
Yeah.
people. You can figure out what a good or great deal is. It's really not that hard.
That's right. And then the other thing, yeah. So, and the turnkey rentals that we sell, I
Hmm.
mean, there are like $90,000 houses in Cleveland and Memphis, and
Hmm.
then so people in California that are used to the marble, not the
Yeah,
marble, the granite countertop and all of that, and they see the rental, and it's like, yeah, it's not your house. You're not gonna live in it.
yeah,
I'm not asking you to live in it
yeah. It
ever.
doesn't have a Viking range. It's okay.
Exactly. Oh, they can cook on electric stove.
Oh my god, pretty funny.
So, yeah. So I think so. Yeah, so confidence, I think, is great. I think you also mentioned that about knowing what a good deal and a bad deal is, and this
Hmm.
is great. And I want to go back to kind of financial education because you
Sure.
have an MBA. I came with an actuarial background, so calculating financial risk
Hmm.
and all of that. And I learned a lot by other people that that are not, they didn't get the same formation that I had. Like
Yeah.
I remember like the notes professor, I think I mentioned it when we spoke last, and he blew my mind with where I'm supposed to be the expert on the interest and theory of interest and pricing of all these things. And yeah, I mean, he blew my mind, and he was just so it was kind of interesting. But and for you with your MBA background, so what do you think? What lessons should people learn or know about in order to invest in real estate?
That's a very good question, because as an accountant and an MBA graduate, I thought the answer to the secret of real estate investing lived in Excel. It doesn't. Being a good real estate investor is simply understanding how hard your cash is working. So it's really addition, subtraction, and division. That's all it is.
Yeah.
My spreadsheet the first 5 years was multiple worksheets, all kinds of depreciation calculations and principal pay downs and all this other nonsense that's not important. My spreadsheet today is like 12 or 13 columns. How much cash am I putting down, which is very simply said, deposit, closing cost, and make ready.
Yeah.
And then what's my expenses over the month? What's the monthly rent? What's the net? You take the yearly expected cash flow divided by the out of pocket, you get a percentage. It's that simple. I think people with a math, engineering, computer science, actuary background make it too hard. Yeah, I did. I mean, I'm the perfect example. It is really simple.
Yeah. And this is what I like about the single family rental space, right? So when you get started, I think eventually, people should graduate to, multifamilies, but really getting started with the single family rental, I think it's as important and to kind of build your confidence about the numbers, about if and also minimizing risk at the same time. So I think it's a good way to get started. And it's simple. I mean, everybody knows what a house is. Everybody knows what a tenant is. And then, there are some expenses running a house, and everybody knows what it is. And you want to make sure that you make some money at the end.
There you go.
So very, very simple. Exactly. Right. So that's the essence of it. You don't need to have any MBAs. Sorry.
No, not at all.
No. Actuarial background to do that. And
absolutely
this is what I like. Yeah,
it's a detriment. I've met too many people with engineering, computer science. I live in the Silicon Valley, so they kind of rotate around me. Yeah. And I sometimes look at their spreadsheets and I go, dude, way too much. I can't even understand it. I mean, were you writing code to create this thing? It's really not that hard.
Yeah. So, okay. And then another question I had was around the, so what do you think about the current situation in terms of the COVID and all of that? How does that impact I mean, you've gone through a couple of crises, right? And so what are you thinking about this current crisis? Is that does that cause for you a moment of pause, or do you say, I still forge ahead?
Yeah, so I definitely hit a pause in March, right? When anytime something new happens, I take a pause. I actually write about 2 pauses in the book, right? First pause is right at the peak, right when we did all the 1031s out, because we did see prices softening. So we're like, whoa, what's going on? Because again, prices only went up forever. And then the other time we paused in the book is when the hedge funds came out of nowhere and started buying pools of foreclosures out of. I didn't know that was possible, right? So those are 2 times we paused when things changed. So we paused in March because we'd never been through a pandemic. I didn't know what that was. Stay-at-home orders? What is that? So definitely took a pause in March. Didn't know what was going on. Then forbearance and all of that stuff. But now I think there's a couple of things. Because the other thing people need to realize is I'm active. I'm not done. I am still growing my portfolio. I'm looking at my market every day in the morning. I'm not done. The beauty of real estate investing is you can do it till you're dead.
Yeah.
It's not an age limit, right? Other than you got to be 18 to sign a contract. But I can be 88 and still doing this, and I plan to. So again, I look at my market. What is happening in Fresno, which is where I'm at? First off, I think in today's market, it's very clear that urban cities lose. San Francisco, New York, Chicago, Seattle, LA. Urban vertical cities, bad. Why? Because in the current health crisis, space is good. So that's one thing. I think San Francisco is toast, frankly, just to make it clear. What that also means is we are now having a generation that historically speaking wanted to rent in these urban cities called the millennials, right? They are now surprisingly, and I have a daughter who's 29, they're now in their early 30s. So they're right. They're like, they have income, they're, you know, paying off student debt, interest rates are really low, and they are going from renters to owners, which I think is awesome. But here's the trick. They're not owning in the urban cities. They are owning in the suburbs. They're not renting a 4,200 2-bedroom in San Francisco. They're owning a home in the suburbs for 2,800, right? So I think homeownership goes up, statistically speaking. I think suburbs go up in value. I was nervous in March, but I think Fresno sees double-digit price appreciation. We see 1 month supply of homes. I've been doing this 20 years. I thought in 06 or 07, when we were at 2.1 month supply, that was crazy. Today's 1 month. I've never seen it like this.
Wow.
So I think prices go up. I think we have a rise in owner occupants. I think the work from home is here to stay in a bigger percentage. So I think the suburbs are the place to be. I think the big cities have a decade of pain. I am really glad to own a lot of rentals because I think a price appreciation happens first. Renters become owners, which reduce the supply perhaps of available affordable units, and then rents go up in the next couple of years. So yeah, I see goodness ahead for the suburbs. If you're in the big city, like if you are a landlord in San Francisco right now, man, you're in trouble.
But, I mean, the rent in San Francisco, like, have gone down like 10-11%.
Double digits. And they're giving away 2 months free and this and that. No, thanks. Not for me.
And then for us, and appreciate the supply though has also decreased, and I think a lot of people are just kind of backed out. They're waiting for the pandemic to be over before putting their houses on the market if they want to sell it and stuff like that.
We'll see. I mean, I'm certainly hoping so, right? Because I want to repeat what I did in the book. In the book, in 2002 to 2007, we bought houses only, and that's what I'm buying now. Is I'm buying houses because I see in Fresno, again, it's my market. I see another cycle coming where I could 1031 out of houses in the multifamily. Call it 2025. So I'm going to try to load up on houses the next 4.5 years. Because I have proof that sometimes houses go crazy high and apartments go crazy low, and I think that's going to happen in 2024, 2025. And I want to be ready.
And I think in 2009, 2010, I mean, this was the first time really that Wall Street decided to buy pools of houses in foreclosure.
It was
crazy. I mean, this is insane that these people would buy houses. Like they like paper. They like papers and numbers, and sometimes paper based on other paper. Right, with the options and stuff like that. And then, but for them to physically go and buy houses, that was insane.
I remember the day. Because I looked every day, folks. I mean, most days twice. I was writing offers every day in 2010 on the next cheap house because I had lined up private money so I could just keep on buying. But then I remember looking in the morning going, there's no new listings, or at least nothing that hit my criteria. And I'm like, that's odd. I first thought maybe the system didn't update. I'll check later, right? Check later, still nothing. Another day goes by, like 2 or 3 days go by. I'm like, something's different. So I call one of the REO agents who controlled inventory and said, what's going on? And he goes, Michael, you'll never believe it. I go, what happened? He goes, Wall Street is buying entire portfolios sight unseen, thousands at a time. We are no longer getting daily inventory. I'm like, they could do that? Why would they do that? It's because the houses were selling for 40 grand when they used to be worth 300. They were like almost riskless. So I guess I get it in hindsight, but that was a weird, I remember thinking the system didn't update. No, freaking Wall Street came in and changed the game.
And they're still buying today. They're still buying huge amount of houses today. They've automated a lot of that.
And they're lining up, dude. Everywhere, every time I turn around, there's a special asset, a SPAC being created to take advantage of this. It's not going to be if, and I don't think we will, but if we had a crisis in the future, mom and pop investors like you and I aren't going to get a lot of choices. Wall Street will just soak it all up.
So right now, what we in January actually we created our wholesaling a
Mhm.
wholesaling company, and we are contacting people directly and making
Hmm.
offers directly. So before it actually
Nice.
hit MLS at all, just because of the volume, the number of houses that we have to buy every month.
Yeah.
So we have to, but we
You
buy every
choose
month.
to.
Choose to. We have a lot of investors that are, that we've been
Hungry.
helping, yeah, that are hungry for more investment. So
Yeah.
we have to do that to serve them. But yeah, we couldn't do enough with MLS.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I get it.
and we still every once in a while we get some, but yeah, it happened a few times. Was, oh wow, we have one house that meets our criteria, and it's like, okay,
We do.
well.
Pretty funny.
So yeah. So anything else you want to add, like a favorite book beside One Rental at a Time,
There
which
was one
is
by Gary Keller.
uh-huh.
I think it's The Millionaire Investor. It's blue and white.
Okay, yeah,
It's
yeah,
about that thick. The reason I like that book, first off, the book is great, but I've gone back in the back of that book. There's like 30 or 35 investor stories
yeah,
that I've gone back and reread 100 times.
yeah.
Because I'm
And
always
I think,
hungry for investor stories. That's why I wrote One Rental at
yeah,
a Time. Is I want to know about somebody that actually did it. Don't tell me theory. Don't tell me
yeah,
about being a broker. Don't tell me about being a real estate agent. I want to know somebody who busted their ass during the day,
yeah,
W-2 job, and got out.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
that was the first book where I found at least some stories.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then yeah, and I think that there was a few too, like that. There was another one that was just a barber that made it into with real estate. He was just a barber,
Hmm.
and then I think it's called The Millionaire Barber or something like that.
Okay,
But
I have to look that one
he
up.
was a barber. It was an older book, but yeah, I mean, it was amazing. And to me, in my story and what I discussed in my book is kind of when I got started at the apartment building that I bought. All of a sudden, I was my mentor at the time was a college community college teacher, and he had
Right.
a 36-unit apartment building that he was living off, and he was choosing to work.
Yeah.
My friend's mother was a hairdresser, and she was doing a furniture store on the side,
Yeah.
and she had a 30-unit apartment building. Uh,
There you go.
Her father was a mechanic, and he had like another 30-unit apartment building, financially free, and he owned a house on a lake somewhere, and just, all of that. So it's just like these are normal people
Yeah.
that they didn't get an MBA, they didn't become an actuary.
No silver spoon. That's what I like.
That's right. And then just very simple, but then they had a goal, and then they focused on that. They learned the skills
Mhm.
to know what a good investment and a bad investments were,
Yeah.
and they pulled the trigger.
Action.
They took action, right? So that was
Nice job.
that was important. Yeah. Another thing that I like in your book too is like you can use as reference. You have a chapter that's like the 21 keys
Yeah.
to. So I think this is very important because you kind of you want to go back. I think you want to go back to that chapter on a regular basis. I mean, your story is great, but every once in a
Mhm.
while you feel like you're down
Yes.
or you're having trouble. You can go back to that chapter, and it's a fairly quick read and kind
Yeah.
of like reminding you of some of the 20 keys to success and
Yeah.
21 keys to success. And then you kind of say, okay, oh yeah, that's right, I forgot about that. And then you
Yeah.
kind of go
I'm
back.
glad you point that out because again, right, about 60% of the book is our story, right? The good and
Yeah,
bad, the road up. But I do believe the 21 key takeaways
yeah,
is probably the most valuable section because again,
hmm,
you can go back, you can look at it. They're not all rosy, right?
yeah,
In more than half of them, I admit I learned that lesson after a mistake.
yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah,
yeah.
that's how most lessons
Yeah.
occur.
Yeah. Yeah. I got that scar. I remember when I did that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Very good. Well, Michael, so thank you very much. Thank you for your time, for your and then people can obviously buy your book at One Rental at the Time on Amazon,
Yeah. Amazon or
um,
Audible. It's
or
also on Audible
Audible.
now. Yeah.
So Audible, do you have an artist that is actually doing the voiceover, or it's
No, it is somebody
you're
else.
reading? Okay,
They gave me a test. They had me test it, and I don't read well, honestly.
okay,
I pause and
really?
that's what they said. So I had to
Okay.
pay somebody. I had to pay a reader. Yeah.
Oh wow, you have to take a test and you can't read.
I don't know if it's a test. Yeah, I guess it was a sound test or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah.
It wasn't long. It was like 90 seconds, but they're like, we could do this for you, but it's going to be really expensive editing it. We recommend you use. I'm like, sure, that's okay. Go use someone else.
You have to speak a certain way.
Certain pace, certain rate.
Yeah.
They don't like your like trailing off and too much, too many things. It just freaked me out.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it won't work for me. It doesn't work for you. Yeah.
Pay someone else.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Michael. Any other places where people can reach out to you if they want advice?
Yeah, the best thing to do for me is I have a YouTube channel called One Rental at a Time.
Mm-hmm.
I put out daily original content. Every day, something new goes up there because that's where I go to help. So if you ever want to get a hold of me or see what I'm doing, One Rental at a Time is my YouTube channel. Just subscribe, watch a few videos. That'd be great.
Very good. Thank you, Michael.
All right, Eric.
Have
take care.
Good rest of your day.
I will.
Okay, bye.
Thank you for listening to Break Away from the Rat Race with your host, Eric Martel. If you want to share your story and experience with our listeners, please message us on Facebook at Break Away from the Rat Race. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast on iTunes.